Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Premier Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome to Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Flying solo this morning as Tim is on the road. Emilio is in a race car bed somewhere in New York, I believe. And Jacob is, Lord knows where Jacob is, but he's around somewhere. We're going to talk a little Packers this morning. We went live a little early. Got to hit the road here in a second. Got to do some traveling today. The goal is to still do a show tonight for PTA Live. As soon as we get to that location, we'll set up, see if the internet's good enough, and we'll try to roll with that this evening and keep this thing moving, trucking along here in Week 18. Hopefully everybody's having an awesome day here on this glorious Friday, January the 3rd. We made it, boys. We made it to the end of the week, right? And hopefully everybody has an awesome weekend coming up. All right, we went live a little early just to get a little jump on it here. We had pretty much everything ready to roll. So let's go into the chat. I know everybody's filing in. Good to see everyone. We got Josh Vallantingham in the chat. He says he's got that diesel brewing ready to talk ball. I've already had my coffee, so I switched it over to a little Sprite Zero here this morning to bring it in for a nice, easy landing. All right, we didn't want to get too mouthy here on the show. Andy Watkins, good morning from frigid Chicago PTA Posse. Man, it sounds like the whole country. Pretty chilly right now, no doubt. Let's see who else we got in here. Let's see. Michael Herman, good morning. Just got home from work. I need coffee and anything Packers. There you go, Michael. Get that coffee brewing, buddy. Harry Cheese in the house. We got Green Ranger. Good to see you. Anthony in here. Hopefully everybody's having an awesome morning. Let's go to one of the first comments here. Packers Kingdom says, Romeo Doubs is easily one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. He's third in overall route win rate, second in zone win rate, 18th in man win rate per @fantasy points data, minimum 25 routes. What's crazy too is I'm seeing other statistics too, Packers Kingdom, that suggests he's way better at man coverage than zone. Now, obviously yours is a fantasy site, so it's probably linking that, right? And the site, I can't remember the site that I was looking at, but there was a graphic someone put up and it showed him, how they do the quadrants, and on the bottom was zone, left to right, from bottom to top was man. He was in the upper left quarter, which would suggest he's not winning as well against zone, but he's awesome against man. And here you've got data, which I'm sure is legit data from their standpoint. That's why, it's kind of hard you just got to watch the tape, That's what you got to do. You got to watch the tape and you got to take all this information as one. I agree with you, though. I think he is an underrated wide receiver. And when you get in a situation like we did the other day there where they're playing a lot of man coverage, you really like Romeo Doubs' chances in the tight quarters, kind of playing in that phone booth. And obviously got some of the best, if not the best, hands on the team. He also went on to say he's 45th in routes run per team drop back at 76.7. Yeah, 76.7%. Jamar Chase is at 96.6%. Justin Jefferson's third at 92.4%. Devontae Adams is sixth at 89.5%. And Romeo Doubs is 46th in percentage of teams' first reads. That makes a lot of sense, again, with him being able to win in those one-on-one matchups. And design targets at 23.6%. Justin Jefferson is fourth at 34.2%. Adams 33.7%. That's seventh best. Jamar Chase eighth at 33.4%. If Romeo Doubs ran a higher percentage of routes and was the first read, you're looking at a similar rate of these other top receivers he would be producing at one of the highest levels in the NFL. I like the way you're thinking there, man. That's a good way to think outside of the box there a little bit, Packers Kingdom. Again, I like Rome. Are you willing to pay him like a Jamar Chase? Are you willing to pay him like a Devontae Adams? I'm not quite there yet. You know what I mean? But with those numbers there, like you were suggesting, if you gave him more targets, maybe more routes ran as the number one read, maybe he does put up those numbers, right? It's hard for me to be convinced of that as we sit right now, not that you're trying to convince anyone. But it's very interesting statistics. We appreciate you dropping those in there, man, for sure. Let's see here. So, all right, we're good. Rel says, sorry, Clayton, but I'm hoping for a Big Ten national championship game. But that being said, beat the Bears. Hey, I completely understand, Rel, completely understand. Going into the playoffs, I didn't really think Notre Dame was like, you knew they were going to have a good ball club. As a Notre Dame fan, I was kind of going into the season going, let's just make the playoffs. If you could somehow, some way get that 5 seed, make the playoffs, have a home game at Notre Dame for the playoffs, that's going to help recruit, and that's going to kind of help put that program on the next level under Marcus Freeman. Boy, they surprised the heck out of me yesterday. I did not expect that with Georgia. I really did. But anyway, this is a Packers podcast. We ain't going to get off topic here. Appreciate you mentioning that, though. And again, I understand you want a Big Ten national championship. That would put all these SEC folks to bed, right? As it's gotten kind of quiet down here in the South here lately. I don't know, man. It seems like the SEC crowd doesn't have quite as much buzz as they usually do. Let's see here. I want to give a shout out to Joshua Dodge, who is in our Patreon group. If you guys want to join our Patreon group, just scan a QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Or you can just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. You can just search it that way and join our Patreon group. If you're in one of the 3 tiers, a member of one of the 3 tiers, that'll enter you into the contest for the giveaways, all that good stuff. But also we've got a number of different chats in there that are really awesome. And Joshua Dodge has been tracking this for us all year long. I wanted to point out at the beginning of the year, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong in man coverage. My stance has always been I like zone coverage better than man because, it creates turnovers. To me, it's you're way less likely to give up explosive plays in the passing game when you're playing zone defense. And it does depend on the specific style of zone you're running. But as long as you're playing no less than 3 deep on a large majority of the zone snaps, you're good. You're going to be able to really contain those explosive plays, which are passing plays with 2 yards or 20 yards or more. But it's like, let's track it. Maybe I'm off base here. We've tracked it all season long. We're now up to interceptions from the Green Bay Packers defense. 13 of the 16 interceptions have come in zone coverage. Only 3 have come in man coverage. So it's important to take that into consideration, seeing that turnovers are the most important statistic of any ball game outside of the score, right? And typically it's a direct reflection of the score. It really is. Or the score is a direct reflection of turnovers, right? And obviously interception is kind of the one you can control the most. So again, shout out to Joshua Dodge. Really appreciate him taking the time to do that. Also, we had a question through text message I wanted to hit real quick. A couple of them from Stinny. Stinny and Oshkosh said, do you think the Green Bay offense getting back into these days is luck, or back into these games is luck, or opponent's defense playing soft with a big lead? Do you think if the Packers fall behind in the playoffs the way they've been, it'll be one and done? If you fall behind in the playoffs, it's highly, highly likely you're going to be one and done. If you're having to play from behind in the playoffs against teams that can really put other people away, yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as them coming back, you gotta watch every specific game. You gotta watch the tape. You gotta see, all right, what was the defense being called? I did not feel like that against Minnesota. I can't help but notice the pessimistic fans, they see it that way. Anytime the Packers, isn't it funny when the Packers allow a team to come back in the second half and close the gap? Oh, they just shut down. They shut it down. They took their foot off the throttle. When the Packers come back, it's the same argument, right? It's, the only reason they came back is because the other team went soft. It's like the fourth quarter is a standalone game. That is what it is. Every defense in the NFL is going to call a similar style when you're up by a couple scores. As an offense, you still got to go out there and capitalize on that, right? And you're begging the offense to run. What's crazy is it's never mentioned that, they may be playing a little soft, but you'll notice your offense can't run the ball against that soft defense. So you're really playing right into their hand, throwing the ball when they go into that shell look. That's where you can really get into trouble, throwing another interception like Sam Darnold did. That's the thing that where I pushed back is it was Minnesota took their foot off the throttle. We got that Carrington Valentine interception came off a 2nd and 11 pass, right? It wasn't like Minnesota was like, all right, let's just run it 3 times and punt it, right? They were still trying to attack our defense, and we took advantage of it. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into that. Who was it again? Stinny. It's funny, I get your name saved to something else, but you're calling yourself Stinny, so we're going to go with Stinny. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in that, man, because, again, you break the game down into 3 segments. The first quarter, the first and early second quarter, it's about gathering information and adjusting, right? First quarter, you're gathering information. Are they doing what we thought they were going to do, right? And then you make a slight adjustment, and then the second into the third quarter is all about controlling the middle eight, and then the fourth quarter is a standalone game. Throw the entire game plan out in the fourth quarter. What have they done up to this point? Let's make our adjustment. Let's go try to win this ball game. So that's why you get some teams that go on their heels a little bit, and other teams that pin their ears back. It's just a part of the game. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into that. His second comment / question. Hi, Clayton Stinney again. Were you surprised that the Titans let Willis go after a pretty outstanding preseason with them? And do you think the Packers would be on the outside looking into the playoffs had they not traded for Malik? I don't think they would be on the outside looking in. Again, it's easy to go just like we do in a game, right? You miss this field goal, that's the reason we lost the game. Unless it was the last play of the game, I just don't buy into that, right? Same thing with these seasons. Like, let's say that Malik Willis wasn't here and Sean Clifford only won one of those games. Or let's say we didn't win either of those games. Who's to say that we didn't go on a massive run and finish with an even better record and finish with 14 wins, right? Or whatever it might be. Again, it's just you're kind of splitting hairs when it's if this hadn't happened, would we be better off? Would we be worse off? The coaches are going to call a different game. They're going to be a little more intense at times. It's a lot like Jell-O. You could push it, right? Just not too hard, right? I've heard that said in business before. And it's so true of football too. These coaches are trying to find the right time to be aggressive and push their team a little harder. And then the times that they've got to back off, right? You're kind of trying to find that sweet spot to get these guys to play at their utmost potential. So, as far as that goes, the Malik Willis thing, when you say he played great in the preseason, I mean, it's preseason, though. We say it every year, right? I want to say he had like 2. I could be wrong. I think he had 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions, something like that. To think that you're going to get a better evaluation of a second or third string quarterback going against second and third string defensive players in a game where we all know the defensive coordinators are calling a vanilla game, that tape is not going to be viewed over the practice tape. Like in practice in these 11-on-11s, they're truly trying to put yourself in a position to see, all right, can they do what we were worried they can't do? You're really trying to get a zeroed in look at a specific aspect of a player's game. To me, that tape is way more valuable than the preseason. So to answer your question, Tennessee didn't think Malik Willis was going to be a good quarterback. I want to say this about Malik Willis. You guys know I'm as excited as anyone about Malik being here next year too, because he's under contract for like 1.5 million or something next year. Might even be less than that. Really excited about having him on this roster. But the thing that you've got to take into consideration too is, guys, it was 2 games. I've been the one going, man, it's nice to know that if Jordan gets banged up, we get the Malik Willis show. That's going to be a lot of fun. Like, he's shown true promise. But as other teams start to put tape on him, keep in mind he hasn't played that much, right? I think it was John Robinson drafted him, and he comes from the Ted Thompson GM tree, right? Basically, he came from Green Bay. I want to say he spent some time in Kansas City. I could be wrong there. Double check me on that. But he obviously came from the Green Bay tree. And he drafted Malik Willis thinking that's our quarterback of the future. Well, he gets crap canned, right? And then they go and draft Will Levis. Well, now what you've got is Mike Vrabel, who may have been a little attached to Malik Willis, like he might be the quarterback of the future. Who knows? Vrabel may have hated him too. And then you bring Malik Willis in, and the front office is divided with the coaches, and they're going, no, Will Levis is the future. Will Levis is the future. In the meantime, now you're trying to adjust your offense to fit Will Levis as opposed to a Malik Willis or whoever the other starter might have been, whether it's Tannehill or whoever. And now you've just got this, I don't want to say divided locker room, but, it's just you're focused on too many things, right? You're focused on too many things, and I could see how someone like Malik Willis would not perform up to his utmost potential. I mean, think about what we do with Jordan Love here, right? And Matt trying to put him in a position to do what he does well. I think that's more part of that argument than anything else. But it definitely isn't as simple as, man, the Titans should have seen in preseason Malik Willis as a dog, right? Now, with all that being said, do they look like absolute asses that they let Malik Willis go and Will Levis couldn't hit a bull in the ass with mop? Absolutely. There's no denying that. But you also had Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, saying this past preseason, of all the quarterbacks in the league, Will Levis reminds me of myself the most. So it's like, what did Brady see watching all the tape on Will Levis, preparing for the upcoming NFL season, to go, that dude reminds me of me? Is it the way he approaches the game? Is it his quick release? Because Will Levis has a lot of tools. And listen, there's going to be the draft nicks out there that like to pretend as if I told you Will Levis was going to be garbage. You can pick the biggest bust in the history of the game, and you're not going to be able to convince me that you know more than the worst NFL GM. It just doesn't work like that. And Stinny ain't doing it. I'm just there was several people on Twitter that came to mind. It's like, boy, your guys' ego is out of control. It really is. It really, really is. But Stinny, thank you for the questions. Hopefully I answered those, man. Appreciate you. Keep in touch. It's always awesome to hear from the fans on the text line there as well. And not fans of this show, Packer fans is what I mean. Please don't think that's coming off conceited there. That's not what I meant there. So let's move on to Twitter real quick. Christian Watson's pops, Tazim, had quote tweeted us here, edge off the edge, right? Talking about Edgerrin Cooper here in the Jeff Hafley comments that we tweeted. That's pretty cool to see. Edgerrin Cooper's creating some serious steam. And I know that many people are talking that Jeff Hafley's been kind of cold shoulder to Edgerrin Cooper in the media. So has Matt LaFleur. They point out his mistakes, guys. That's coaching 101. I'm just going to tell you right now. That's by design. You never let a guy get too high. You never let a guy get too low. We talked about it last night, how, Javon Bullard, Jeff Hafley went to him after the game, said, I got your back, man. I know what you dealt with this week. You busted your ass to come back from injury, right? And then you practice all week as a slot corner, and then you end up having to play safety as soon as it wasn't like 2 days before the game, guess what? You're going to be playing safety. We're talking about like 10 plays into the game. Get out there at safety, dude, right? That's tough, man. That's tough on a player. And I've been as critical of Bullard as anyone, but I always do throw in the caveat. Listen, we can't expect what Edgerrin Cooper is doing like that's the standard for rookie players in the league. We all know it is not, right? So I just think it's cool that Hafley is building Bullard up when he's having a bad year and kind of bringing Edgerrin down a little bit while he's having a great year. I think that's just good coaching. I think that's good leadership. I really do. So let's go back to Twitter here real quick. And shout out to Mike Hebring. Mike Hebring had tagged me in a tweet basically saying that Rashan Gary was not starting caliber. And listen, Mike's in here all the time. Mike's a supporter of the show. Me and Mike differ on probably 80% of our conversation. But Mike is a blessing to the show, and we consider him a friend. He tends to be a little more pessimistic, a little more, here's, why is this wrong? And I'm more on the side of, hey, here's what's going right, okay? And I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those stances. But he had threw a tweet out this morning, and I replied to it. And then it got me thinking, man, maybe I'm off base. Let's go look at the numbers again. Let's go look at the statistics. We've watched the hell out of the tape with Rashan Gary, and we can continue to do that if y'all want to. Like, we can pull up all of these run stops and show how he's been effective in the running game, because the media is still – let me say this about the media. They know where the hot button topics are. Go back 3 years to Aaron Rodgers. They rode that for ratings forever. They know that one of the hot button topics with this fan base is Rashan Gary. Rashan Gary's overpaid. Rashan Gary's a bum. All these things that everybody say, right? Like, it's like every year you've got to find one player and go, yep, it's his fault. Or last year it was Joe Barry. Yep, it's Joe Barry's fault. Get rid of Joe Barry. So we get rid of Joe Barry, the pass rush goes down a touch, and now everybody's, it's Rashan Gary's fault. You guys know I've been vocal. I feel like Kenny is the guy, if anyone is underperforming in this defense, although they all took a step back because it's a new scheme. And you could tell they're truly trying to stop the run this year. And, we all want a good run defense until we start stopping the run. And now all of a sudden it turns into, where's the pass rush? What happened to the pass rush? Defense just isn't played that way in the NFL, man. You could take something away, but you're sacrificing another aspect of your defense in order to do that. But here's a tweet I put out this morning. I just said, I want to be crystal clear here. I'm not saying Rashan Gary is having a great first year in Hafley's scheme, but this whole Gary is bad at football stance is just silly. I want to specify. Mike was not saying Gary is bad at football. Mike was simply saying, according to PFF, he wasn't starting caliber. And I had to point out that actually PFF says totally the opposite, okay? He's got a 73.1 PFF grade, all right? And if you click on this, 73.1 PFF grade for Rashan Gary, is 29th best in the league amongst edge defenders. So how many starting edge defenders are there across the league every single Sunday where you say these are our 2 best edge defenders? That's starting caliber. Whether we agree with the coaching staff thinking they're starting caliber or not, that is how that's decided. So you've got 64 edge defenders that are starting caliber edge defenders when they're healthy. Rashan Gary's grading out 29th best. So not only does that suggest he's a starting caliber edge defender, but it also suggests that he is a number 1 edge defender on a team. You understand what I'm saying? Like 29th, top 32, okay, you can be a number 1 edge defender. That's not my opinion. That's the PFF grades saying, look, stacked up against everyone else at that same edge position across the league, he's 29th best. So, and you can say, well, Clayton, I don't think PFF is accurate at all. That's totally cool. Okay, let's go back to the next stat here. 18th in quarterback pressures. So when you go to quarterback pressures, and this is NFL Pro, okay, this is no longer this is no longer PFF. So and again, you guys know I've been vocal about PFF. I wish they would show you each individual play. We gave them a grade of this, a grade of that, a grade of this. Then you can watch the tape, sync it up, and go, well, I disagree with their grade, or yep, nope, I see your point. But they do it so blindly. It's just sometimes when the grades come out too, it really does make you think that they're kind of sitting back like, you know what, let's just rush this out here real quick and forget it. So we sorted by pressures, quarterback pressures. He is 18th in the National Football League in quarterback pressures. It looks like it's probably 49. No, probably will be 50. That arrow's covering it up right here on my screen. So in quarterback pressures, right? And again, this is GPS tracking, getting within a certain distance of the quarterback while he's still got the ball in his hand. He's basically 18th best. Once again, top 32 suggests a number 1 edge defender on the team. Top 64 would be starting caliber, right? But here's what's crazy. NFL Pro won't let you differentiate between defensive tackle and defensive end. So a defensive line is all thrown in. So this includes the defensive tackles as well. So now you're talking about, to be starting caliber, typically 4 defensive linemen, right? Because you're in nickel the majority of the time, whether you play a 34 or a 4-3 base, you're going to be in your nickel 4-2-5 or a nickel 2-4-5 like we ran last year under Halfley. There's going to be 2 defensive tackles and there's going to be 2 edge defenders, right? So in that case, on this specific list here, you would say top 120 in just defensive linemen as a whole. He's 18th in pressures, in quarterback pressures. Now, you guys know the big thing that stood out to me this year is Gary has been better against the run this year than any other year I can remember. He's 31st in run stops. And once again, that's defensive linemen that include defensive tackles as well. All right. So he now has 36 run stops. And I actually was a little bit, I could have made the numbers look even better here because he's actually tied. He's got 36, but he's tied for 29th in the league with 36 run stops. Now, I heard Chewy on Jen Gabe and Chewy this morning said he's not good at run defense because that's tackles for loss, and his tackles for loss is horrible. I disagree wholeheartedly, and I try not to disagree with former NFL players. If you're telling me, this is kind of the sack and pressure argument, right? If you're telling me that sacks are the most important stat, I can't argue with that. Would I rather have a tackle for a loss or a run stop? Let's start with sacks. Would I rather have a sack or a pressure? I'd rather have a sack. But the reality is you've got some players that don't get as many sacks, but they get a ton more pressures. Let me put it this way, very, very simplistic form here. If you're saying, Clayton, you can either have 3 sacks or you can have 8 pressures, which are you taking? I'm taking the 8 pressures because, you got 3 sacks, but there's 7 other plays where you weren't even an impact on the play. But if you give me that 7 or 8 pressures, whatever the number was, that's 7 different plays where the quarterback's being hurried off his spot. Good chance he throws an interception or throws into coverage, but also you pressuring him, forcing him to move around the pocket, as we've seen this year, forces him to step into another sack. So it's all about getting a more positive result on far more overall snaps than it is just having these 2 or 3 flash plays. Now let's go to run defense. Would you rather have a tackle for a loss or a run stop? What's the difference? Run stops are essentially a running play that didn't make it like 2 or 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Okay, so it's like, okay, that was, yeah, they got positive yards, but you stopped them, right? Like you kept them from having a positive play, essentially. So would I rather have a tackle for a loss or a run stop? I would rather have a tackle for a loss. But the argument applying again, would you rather have 3 tackles for a loss or 8 run stops? I'd rather have the 8 run stops. And I'm going to tell you why. Because how many times you see in an NFL game where you get a tackle for a loss, yeah, that's great and everything, right? That's the epitome of what you want to see. But if you're not going to have a positive impact on the running game for the next 7 plays and you got that 1 tackle for a loss, that means they're moving the damn sticks on those other 7 snaps or whatever it may be, as opposed to 8 run stops. You're keeping them limited to 2 yards rushing. So it's all about consistency in constantly putting the defense in a position where, okay, that was a positive play for us. Now we've got them in a 3rd and 8 as opposed to a 3rd and 4. You understand what I'm saying? So like, to me, Gary has been more consistent, but hasn't shown those big flashes. And the other thing too is like for the crowd that, hey man, he shouldn't be on the roster because of, he's overpaid. I've heard that over and over and over. He is the best defensive lineman. That includes defensive tackles and edge defenders on our entire team right now. So you're trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's just like the Jaden Reed argument, right? Like Jaden Reed, some people are making it sound like Jaden Reed's an absolute bum. 136 passer rating when targeted this year. What are you talking about? Well, he's got a lot of drops. Okay, got it. Yeah, that sucks. I don't want the drops either. But to pretend like he's not the best receiver on this team right now, it's just silly. Same thing with Rashan Gary. So can you improve those positions? Absolutely. They're positions of needs for us going into this offseason. I don't have edge defender there because I would rather have a 3 tech over an edge defender. And when you look at Gary's grade, you look at Kenny Clark's grades and you look at his pressure rate and you look at his run stops, it is nothing, and I mean nothing like Rashan Gary. And that's what those big guys are supposed to do in the middle, stop the run, right? Because you're no longer in a 34. Gone are the days of you're going to be playing 2-gap in your base 34 and you're just kind of holding ground and shedding side to side, right? Like now's the time that you should be making those tackles. Now, there's a caveat there like we've shown on tape all year. Jeff Hafley's playing that touch spy. When I see a defensive tackle stand upright, occupy a double team, and you can see he's spying the quarterback and looking for a draw player trying to control a rush lane, I'm not going to penalize him for that. He's doing exactly what the coach has asked him to do. And Hafley specifically mentioned that in his presser yesterday. There's many times that we're calling plays where Gary's the guy who's just going inside and busting up a double team and allowing the dude to try to loop free, right? And there's other times that he's the looper. So you got to take everything into consideration. I just think it's hilarious that the people who were kicking and screaming that Rashan Gary's just so damn bad at football, all of a sudden he gets named to a Pro Bowl. I'm showing you he's grading out as a legit number 1 edge defender on any team in the league, right? Not any team in the league, but every team in the league, 32 teams, right? He would qualify as, hey, he would be a number 1 edge defender. He could be a number 1 edge defender on the worst team, right? And he damn sure falls into that starting caliber. So, yeah, there's room for improvement. I think he will improve in this defense as Hafley learns what everybody does and does well. And he may slow down on the stunts next year, Hafley might, and just do some straight up blitzes, right? That may become a thing too. But it's just embarrassing. It's like you can tell that it comes from the overly emotional people. And usually that conversation ends with their voice raising, and you can tell, okay, they're just upset. They are just mad at the world, and they're not truly trying to dive in and understand here's what's going on. But when I heard that today from Chewy, I was a little taken back. Like, tackles for loss is not the only way to measure a good run defense. Let me tell you how you can measure a good run defense. Yards per carry allowed. Period, case closed, right? That's the goal. I know some people like to do yards per game, rushing yards per game. I personally don't buy into that as much as yards per carry, because you could have an offense that turns the ball over, 3 times. That team wins the turnover differential 3-0, and they just continue to pound the rock and run the clock out, and they're only getting 3 yards a clip, right? But at the end of the game, they look up and they got 140 yards rushing. Like, wow, our run defense sucked. No, not necessarily. Our offense kept giving them the ball back, and they just pressed into the run as much as they could, and we were kind of stopping it. So if the run defense is improved, this is the moral of the story. The run defense has improved. I think we would all agree that it's improved pretty dramatically, right? Okay, now you peel a layer back and go, okay, why did it improve? Oh, Rashan Gary's leading the team in run stops. You turn on the tape. This dude's flashing across the formation, hustling his ass off. The play is 7 yards away from him. The guy gets cut off in the backfield, tries to make a cut. And if Rashan Gary isn't playing whistle to whistle, like we know he does every single down, he's not making that tackle, therefore not getting that run stop. There's probably, I would feel comfortable saying that 7 or 8 of his 50, whatever it was, 49 run stops were that very thing right there, him coming across the formation, rushing, hustling and making the play. And it's just, the tackles for a lot. Everybody looks for an easy way to determine why someone's bad. Therefore, that's why the team's bad. Therefore, get them out of here. And it's just not that simple. It really isn't. And you got to look at it on a play-by-play basis. And that's where I would push back on somebody like that. Like, I have all the respect in the world for Chewy, right? And I would ask him, okay, what plays have you watched specifically? Give me the snap. Give me the game, give me the timestamp, and I'll watch it with you. And if you're right, you're right. But they don't do that. They just look at the statistics. And then I'll go comb through the statistics. I'm like, what are we complaining about? This dude's a top 32 edge defender. First year in a defense. Run defense got better. Like, we're legit a top 10 defense now. Last year, I would say we were around 12 to 15, depending on which metric you want to look at. So, I don't know, man. It's frustrating. It's a little frustrating, but I just want to point out that's my stance on that. And I don't understand that whole argument of, hey, they're just bad. It's just, it's weird. So, CJ in the chat, yeah, exactly, Clayton. Those 8 pressures will make quarterback get happy feet. Again, you want sacks, right, CJ? And I know you know this too, man. If you're saying, would you rather have 8 sacks or 8 pressures? Of course, you'd rather have 8 sacks. But that's not the reality of that conversation. So if you'd rather have a guy who gets 2 sacks and only 4 pressures, I'm taking the guy with 8 pressures and, 1 sack or whatever it may be, right? So, again, just yeah, you're right, Michael. Just people thrive on negativity. And again, I understand in the radio business, this is what gets the engagement. Guys, we're not interested in engagement here. Like, matter of fact, I'm not a people person. You guys probably caught on to that. I'm a hermit. But you want to get people engaged in your broadcast. You want to get people engaged on your Twitter and all that. That clickbait stuff, you'll see me tweet stuff out more often than not that I get roasted because the majority of people disagree with it, right? And it's not going to have that same effect of, yeah, everybody get your pitchforks. That's the problem right there. It just ain't gonna do it, man. Can't do it. So let's see here if we can hop back out. We will. I'm going to go back to Twitter here and hit on the next thing. We had talked about the pressure, obviously. So I took it one step further here. All right. And this next thing here, you'll see the original tweet that I attached. The argument then goes to, okay, yeah, he might be a legit starting edge defender, right? As we said here in this other tweet where I said, I want to be crystal clear. I'm not saying Rashan Gary's having a great first year, but he's not bad at football, right? Then it goes to, well, he's just overpaid. He's overpaid. All right. You also hear Rashan Gary's overpaid. There's 21 other defensive linemen with a larger cap hit than Rashan Gary. Rashan Gary has an $11.1 million cap hit this year. Now, guess what happens? The goalposts get moved again. It's, well, that's just this year. It's going to raise next year. It will raise next year. You're exactly right. But guess what? Next year's a different year. And that contract can be restructured. And also, they don't take into consideration. This was my argument with Aaron Rodgers when people were saying he's the $50 million quarterback. There wasn't 1 year that he was $50 million against the cap. And that's all I care about as a fan is, can we get under the cap, and which guys are eating up the most cap space, right? Which guys are eating up the most cap space to fill the best roster? Now, we're talking about Jair Alexander. The conversation right now, you notice how nobody's mentioning the cap penalty. Everybody's saying, we just move on from him. You could free out $6 to $7 million. You could free that up. And nobody's mentioned the $18 to $19 million cap penalty, whatever it may be, right? Because nobody truly cares. They only care about that when they can maneuver the conversation to prove their point. And I think a lot of people argue over this whole Rashan Gary thing because there's receipts out there. They've got tweet after tweet of them overreacting, not understanding what the scheme is actually asking these players to do. And then when you prove that wrong, they get all defensive and they want to go defend their stance. Again, Mike was not doing this. Mike was pointing out that, I guess it was PFF that was saying that. Isn't it ironic? I used PFF grade to prove that he's the 18th best edge defender in the game? All right, let's go off PFF. Here's their grades. But here's the problem with PFF. You've got human beings working there that write articles and give their opinion, and their opinion may be that he's less than that, while their whole staff is grading him out as a top edge defender. It's like, anyway, $11.1 million against the cap is Rashan Gary. So I think that's money well spent. The guy is leading the team in every important statistical category for your defensive line, and he's getting paid $11.1 million against the cap this year. And I've already closed the cap tab out. Go look at Kenny's. Again, this isn't to pile on Kenny and go, he's the problem. You see him doing a lot of touch spine. This is what Hafley's asking those guys to do. I'm going to be honest with you guys. When I seen him touch spine those out of the one tech on those double teams, as much as he was, I'm going, we could get another guy to do that. Right? Like, why are we doing that with Kenny? But Hafley sees something in the defense, and I'm telling you what I think he sees is teams know how good Kenny Clark can be. So they try to scheme around Kenny, and they damn sure try to scheme around Rashan Gary because you've seen it again this last game, them chipping him, right? That's another thing, too. I won't say the knucklehead, but he's on a show, and he's been driving the bus for this Rashan Gary hate all year long, right? And, boy, he talks as if he's an authoritarian on football knowledge. And he likes to point out that a tight end stood up Rashan Gary and blocked him straight up. He can't even beat a tight end blocking him. And you go, and I went and watched the tape on that one. It was early in the year. It was like week 2 or 3. And I'm like, he's playing spy. What are you talking about? Like, you don't even understand what he's being asked to do on this specific play. You just see a number 84 blocking him, and you go, Rashan Gary's so bad he can't even beat a tight end. He could beat that tight end's brains in if he just pinned his ears back and went to the quarterback. That's not what Hafley was asking him to do. What Hafley was asking him to do is, out of a wide 9, here's what they're showing on tape. Here's what teams are doing to us. They're going to put the left tackle blocking, and they're going to have the tight end help chip. Here's what I want you to do, Gary. I want you to engage and then work yourself to the middle of the field, and you play spy. You're going to occupy 2 bodies. Well, what happened on that specific play? He engages. The tackle puts a hand on him. The tackle bends over to help out in the middle because he recognizes Rashan Gary's not actually rushing the quarterback right now. And Rashan Gary is playing patty cake with the tight end with his eyes on the quarterback to make sure he doesn't scramble. That's called a touch spy. And, of course, that guy had no clue what the actual call was. It was just, there's a number 84 blocking Rashan Gary. He's horrible. Let me write that down for the show tomorrow. It's just silly. It's silly. Guys, I'm a moron. I'm an idiot. If I can figure this stuff out, I know people with all of the resources they have at a major network can figure it out. So the question is, why don't they? Why are they not really figuring it out? They don't want to. Because, again, it farms engagement and creates the outrage, and all the fans, the negative fans, the loud ones that watch their show, to pile on and try to prove their point. That's just how that works, man. So, yeah. Michael Herman in the chat. They think it's like Madden, just blitz every play, right? Engage 8. Yeah. And listen, I'm not an anti Madden person. I love Madden. I've been actually, back in the day, I was at several Madden tournaments. I love what Madden does, and it's the closest thing to, the real game. But boy, oh boy, is it far from the real game too, though. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but you're right, man. And it just, Holmes agrees there too, man. People just get a little crazy with that stuff. I want to see what Nick was saying here about Love, because it's actually, my next tweet is actually about Love. Jordan Love, not Love itself. Everybody needs love, but we're talking Jordan Love here. Let's see what he said here. Nick McSwain says Love's extension was $46 million per year, but people always say he's making $55 million a year. It's 55 if you include the year he's currently playing on, but the extension is only 46. And that's the thing too, Nick. Like, we can get out of that contract in year 3. Let's say Love was to fall flat on his face. In year 3, you could really look up and go, all right, we're going to take a big cap hit, but now's the time. Let's go find our franchise quarterback. I think Love is the franchise quarterback. I could be wrong in 2 years. I could look up and go, boys, I had it wrong. I've seen enough that I think Love is the dude. And there's enough metrics to back that up for me. It's on the tape too. Again, another year under his belt. If he really gets better and puts a full season together, like, put it this way, if you took the second half of last season and the second half of this season and put it together as a full season, dude's playing elite football. Now, I know there's going to be critics that go, well, that's not the guy. I got you. I completely understand. He's got to put it together. But And I said this when Aaron Rodgers finally left. I said they're going to do the same thing to Jordan Love. Their fans are going to do the same thing to Jordan Love. It's going to be about, why didn't he take less money? Why didn't he take how many times we hear that with Jordan or with Aaron Rodgers? I challenge everybody to do me a favor. Go look at Aaron Rodgers' career earnings, okay, and look at his cap hit year by year, and then take that cap hit and divide it by the years that he's played in the league, and look at where that stacks up across the NFL. You'd be surprised. You would be really surprised. Still gonna fall in the top 10, but he damn sure isn't number one. And the same conversation is going to be steered toward Love. There's something that goes on with fans that when a player gets a contract, all of a sudden now, well, you better raise your game now. Bro? They paid him for what they think he can be, yes. But this notion of now I'm going to be extra critical and hate on this player because he got the bag is just silly to me. That's on the front office to get it right. At that point, why are we going to hate on a player as a fan and try to manipulate the numbers and make it sound like it's worse than it actually is? We covered that Aaron Rodgers extension very, very thoroughly here. Talked about how Russell Wilson's agent talked with Andrew Brandt about it and said, hey, yeah, this is no one truly knows what the optional aspect of this contract is other than Aaron's camp and the team. But this seems like a 1 plus a 2 with an option of a 3 is what it seems like. And that's what it ended up being. Now, if you want to criticize somebody, criticize Brian Gutekunst because he threw the bag at him and then cut him after 1 year, and we had to absorb a $45 million cap penalty, right, without that player on the roster. So was it the right move? I think it probably was the right move, but you're not going to convince me that that was a good move that they gave him that extension. You should have just moved on because let me put it this way. The past is the past, right? That $45 million cap penalty that we had on the roster last year, I believe it was. Let's pretend like, all right, we're not going to go back and try to get players during that year. But I'm going to tell you, it would have rolled over. Imagine if we're looking up this year and we got over $100 million in cap space, right? Who's to blame for that? If you talk to some of the fans, they would blame Rodgers. Why he should have took less money. Goody's the one who gave him the contract. Goody's the one who came crawling back to him, right? And again, I think Goody's done a great job. I don't think he's a bad GM. I think he's a great GM. I think Goody, he's just a Super Bowl away from going up. This guy might be in the Hall of Fame, but it's just, you got to take everything into consideration. I don't want conversations on this show to turn into it's this way and only this way rather than looking at every angle, So there you go, Holmes. The market is the market. That's it, man. That's it. And I always use this. I'm selling a house right now. I always use this comparison. That house I'm selling, I think it's worth $300,000, right? I put it on the market for $300,000. Somebody comes in and offers me $250,000, right? What am I going to say? Oh no, it's worth $300,000. That house is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. Period. Case closed. Now you got to make a decision. Is it worth it for you to pay for that quarterback? Quarterback is that important. So I agree with them extending Jordan Love because that was the market, right? What was the other option, guys? There's some fans that believe we should never give Jordan that contract. Okay, cool. Let him walk into free agency, right? Let him walk into free agency. Who's your quarterback? Well, they'll say it's Malik Willis, but let's be honest, they hadn't traded for Malik Willis yet. Who knows if that would have felt the same way it did? And also, if it is Malik Willis, what happens when teams get 6-7 weeks of tape on him and they start heavily scouting against him and put a scheme together to stop him, right? That's why our boy Greg Cosell, the GOAT, said about Jordan has all the arm talent in the world. He has all the ability to be a starting quarterback. The question is he going to be the same quarterback week in and week out? When things go wrong, is he going to come back the next week, reset, and do what he knows is right and try to press into the mechanical aspect of the game, try to press into everything that's being coached, right? We don't know if Malik could do that when he hit a wall. I hope he would. And again, I'm excited about Malik Willis, but it's just a weird argument to try to make it sound as if Jordan isn't worth the money when we know what the market was, right? And again, when you see the way he's played at the end of the year here, let me put this up real quick. It kind of goes hand in hand with it. Jordan Love is 5th in EPA on play action passing. There's several reasons that teams are forced away from it by the defense, but the Packers need to really press in if possible because, again, it's easy. We just need to run more play action. Well, there's a reason that Matt LaFleur is scheming away from it. There's something he's seen on tape, I'm sure, that deters him from doing more play action. But when you look at this chart here, it's play action usage and play action efficiency, okay? Running from left to right on the bottom of the chart is the percentage of all plays in which you run play action pass, okay? And then when you look running vertically on the left side of the screen, you go EPA per play, okay? So this is play action passing, percentage of all plays. Jordan Love is, just barely above the median line. If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably 21 to 22%, right? Is percentage of all plays is play action passes, right? And when you go EPA per play, he's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he's fifth. He's definitely fifth. Just looking at it again here. Make sure I get that right. Yeah, fifth in EPA is what I put on the tweet. So who are the players that are better than him in EPA per play? Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy. Probably Derek Carr by just a smidget. So he's top 5 in EPA per play, and the percentage of all plays, in my opinion, needs to be higher. I'd like to see him running more play action, if that makes sense. So just wanted to point that out, another metric that suggests, hey, the Packers should press into play action passing, if that makes sense. So, let's see here. Sushi Bagel, can you do a comparison for Jordan Love versus all second-year starters? Man, I would love to do that. Sushi Bagel. Love the name, by the way. I don't know if I got time to do it. Again, I'm about to hit the road right now. If I was staying here in the office all weekend long, I could probably pull it off and try to go through and look at that. We need to see that. Like, how does his second year compare to other second-year quarterbacks, right? Because the sophomore slump's a real thing too. And I know people go, hey, he's not a sophomore, he's a fifth-year vet or whatever it is. You're missing the point. It's his sophomore year starting. Therefore, the reason the sophomore slump is a thing is because defenses catch on to what you're doing. And the sophomore slump typically comes because, hey, here's what I did well. Let's press into that. Let's do more of that. Oh, crap, the defense is taking that away. How do you adjust to it, right? That's why typically second-year quarterbacks take a step back. Everybody's raking C.J. Stroud over the coals right now like he's a horrible quarterback. That's silly. That's really, really silly. You've got to give him time. Again, second year as a starter, he's going to learn and adjust. I think he will. Now, he may end up being a bad quarterback, but that's that sophomore slump we talk about and the adjustments you got to make. So, but yeah, we need to do that, man. We definitely need to see that. It's funny though, sophomore slump, he's still, pretty much a top 10 quarterback. That's pretty wild to think about, right? So, and some of the plays he makes, man, that's what's Biz there. I like this sophomore slump. Same, man. Same. If some are considering it. And I'm not saying Sushi Bagel was saying that. I'm just, kind of thinking out loud here. There you go. J. Cole. Texans offensive line is awful too. It's a good point. And you know what? Is it that their offensive line is so awful, Jay? Were they bad last year? We'd have to go look at it, right? We'd have to deep dive it and see, okay, yeah, they were bad last year too, but C.J. Stroud made up for it. Or is it they're having a bad year as an offensive line? Could be injuries, but it could also be, once again, here's how C.J. Stroud played. Let's attack the offensive line from this angle. Let's run more stunts here. Let's try to do a little touch spy there, whatever it may be, to throw his game off, and that could cause a sophomore slump too. So it's not just about that one player in the quarterback. It's how's the O-line playing. The other thing too, look at the receivers he's lost all year long. He's got Nico Collins back now, I believe, but he's missed significant time this year. Tank Dell absolutely destroyed his leg after coming back from an injury too. So, you know what I mean? He's trying to patch that together with backup wide receivers. Our receivers, I feel like, have been pretty healthy this year, with the exception of a couple freak things. Romeo Dobbs' concussion, obviously. It's a serious thing. Christian Watson, that freak play with the dude landing on his leg. But overall, I feel like we've been pretty healthy. But again, we've got, I think, a wide receiver room full of a bunch of number twos. And that's not a knock. That's a good thing, in my opinion. That means you can go to any of those guys and they can be dependable, somewhat dependable. Got to get the drops issue fixed, though. Got to. Whether fourth or fifth worst in the league in terms of drops. So got to get that better. And here's the thing, too. Just from a numbers standpoint, that would suggest that that drops thing might improve going into the playoffs because they've been so bad at it this year, too. There's that angle, too, right? Sometimes the numbers balance out a little bit more with more reps. So who knows, man? Maybe we get in the playoffs and this becomes just a solid wide receiver room and Jordan Love plays his best ball and we could get hot. That could be the case. Holmes MD1, I could try to work on that project. That would be great, Holmes, if you would. That would be absolutely awesome, man. You could just text it over to me on the text line or email it or whatever. That would be really – you could probably type it out too. I'm sure we could do that. But, again, what we're referring to is what Sushi Bagel asked. Can we compare second years. Here we go. Can you do a comparison for Jordan Love versus all second-year stars? Yeah, Holmes. Again, if you can't do it, it's totally cool. But if you find yourself a time to do that, man, let's do that. That'd be awesome. So, CJN, last comment. We got to get out of here. My wife's going to kill me. I got to get on the road. I got to pack all this stuff up, too. It's going to be crazy. CJN says those people that don't understand that Love is really only his second year playing just shows how ignorant they really are. And again, it's just emotional fanning, you know. And that's okay. They can do that. I just try to distance myself from it. You know what I mean? Because, like, I really want to key in and figure out what happened, why did it happen, and man, you have got to remove some of that noise because you've got to remove emotions if you're going to try to truly understand what a team is actually doing. You know, you got to look at it that way. And if you're hearing my voice, you go, well, I don't want to fan that way. I don't want to take the time to think, okay, cool. That's totally cool. You know, you do you, we'll do us. And that's totally fine. It ain't a big deal. I've got to stop engaging with it. Right. But Mike mentioned that this morning. I'm going, where's that coming from? Let me look. Is that really true? And I looked at PFL. I'm like, that ain't true. So I'm sure he's got a response on his original tweet. I need to go check it, see what he said. So, but anyway, that's it, guys. I'm going to get out of here real quick, get everything loaded up. If everything goes as planned, we will do a show tonight. I'll just be in another town with another setting, disregard the bad setup, and obviously we won't have all the fun tools that we have here on this original setup. But we'll still do a show tonight, tomorrow morning, tomorrow night. We'll probably do a pregame show from Chattanooga, and then I'll hit the road, watch the game on the road, and then get here in time to do a postgame show for y'all. That's the plan anyway. Give me a little grace if it doesn't work out completely like that, but that's what we're going to try to do. So that's it. We're out. Appreciate you, Nick. Thank you so much, Biz. You guys are awesome. We'll do sushi. You guys, everybody have a great day. Hit that like button for us on your way out, and we will talk to you all on the other side here, probably about 7 p.m. Central tonight. We'll do a deep dive into the Packers-Bears matchup. It should be a fun one with the NFL Pro Insights. I'm sure there's some doozies in there making fun of the Bears, so we'll enjoy that. Everybody have a great day. Talk to you soon.
And we go. We out.
Bye, guys.